Afternoon, everyone. This is Neil Calderola, your instructor. Take a look at your screen. This is the part we are going to be tackling this afternoon. It is called a swing link. The first thing we have to observe is, first of all, the style that it is made in. It is an ISO part, therefore it is metric. We will be then using a metric template to create the part. The other thing I'd like you to notice is that this is primarily a symmetrical object. So as we have been explaining in the last few weeks, symmetrical objects, the best way to tackle something of this sort is to complete one half and then use the powerful mirroring tools to complete the opposite end of it. There are features such as the holes that are slightly different. For example, this hole here is 22 millimeters as opposed to all the other holes, which are 16 millimeters. And the top hole here in the top boss actually has a keyway through it. So we are having to add additional features, but we will go about doing it step by step. So with that said, let's open up Solid Edge and let's tackle it as we speak. So here's Solid Edge. We are going to start by by opening up a new template. The template we're going to be using is an isometric metric part. As I've explained previously, to change between templates, all we're going to do is just click on the edit list. We're going to go in here and pick the correct standard. This is an ISO standard, so we're using the isometric version. If this was inches, we would use the ANSI standard. So we will keep it to the ISO. Let's click OK. Let's select our part to start. And now let's take a look at the drawing itself. If you have the drawing in front of you, the drawing is pretty much standing straight up. The two cylindrical bosses on the top and the bottom are vertically opposite each other. So we're going to use the front view. So the front view we can simply extract by selecting the ZX plane or use the base reference planes and click on the front. For myself, the first thing I need to do though is I need to switch from synchronous, which my system automatically defaults. I will right mouse button over it. When I right mouse button over it, I will go down on the last choice of the flyout and click on transition to ordered. When I do that, it allows me then to start a sketch. I'm going to start a sketch, and just so we can stay all on the same page, I'm going to use the base reference planes, and I'm going to click on the front plane, which is right there, and now we're ready to sketch. Let's move this down just a little bit. What I'm going to do is I am going to start by creating a 2-point rectangle. So here's my 2-point rectangle. I'm going to start by clicking at the absolute 0 and then just simply dragging up. Okay, I'm going to left click. There's my 2-point rectangle. I'm going to then select this edge and then just simply delete that, and then I get a backward C. The reason I need that is because if we take a look at the drawing, center to center of the bosses is 140 millimeters, and the spacing in between where the openings are is 70 millimeters. So we're going to use these lines as our location points for our bosses on both the top and the bottom, and we're going to use this line as our center line. Before we do anything, I'm just going to highlight, and the way that I highlight is I take my cursor, I put my cursor anywhere on the left side, click and hold down the left mouse button, drag, and then go right across and create a nice blue window over all three of the objects. Let go. The reason I want to do this is because I'm going to convert these objects to construction. So I'm going to take my cursor and I'm going to go up to construction, which is right here. I'm going to click on construction, and because these were all pre-selected, as soon as I click on construction, all of the lines turn into construction lines, which is exactly what I want. We now have to add some intelligence. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make this line and this line equal to each other. So I'm going to hit escape, And I'm going to pre-select that one, holding Control, pre-select this one. Then I'm going to go upstairs here, and I'm going to use my equals and select any one, and it will automatically make both of them equal, which is exactly what I want to do. I'm going to use a smart dimension to start with. I'm going to put a dimension on the vertical line, and that dimension is 140 millimeters. The reason? It is the center to center distance of the two vertical and horizontal, the two vertical bosses, the top and the bottom. I'll hit my fit, which is right here, and then I'll just move this down a little bit. Okay, hit escape. I do need one more additional dimension, and that is the horizontal dimension of only one of these lines, and that is going to be 35. Reason we're making this 35 is if we take a look at the drawing, the opening separation is 70 millimeters. So because it's 70 millimeters, we are basically taking and creating the 1/2 at 70 millimeters, or excuse me, half of 70 millimeters, which is 35 millimeters. Okay, so we now have our skeleton. Let's start by creating some actual geometry. To do this, I am going to first of all create two rectangles. So I'm going to go, I'm going to create the first rectangle. It's a 2-point rectangle. Endpoint here, drag, and I don't really care how big it is so far. I'm just placing them where they're supposed to be. Same thing down here. So two rectangles. Each one is created at the endpoint of the 35 millimeter line, just like so. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of smart dimensions. The first smart dimension is I will put the horizontal dimension on the top rectangle, and that is 25. And then I will do the exact same thing on the bottom, and that is actually 19. And all of these numbers are coming right off of the drawing. Okay, so now we have the overall thicknesses of the bosses. We now, however, need the overall, or the actual radial distance. So if we take a look at the top, it is 48. So at 48, we will put a radial dimension. 48 divided by 2 is 24. Okay, and we'll do the same thing with the smaller 19. We'll click. That is 32, so 32 divided by 2 is 60. Okay, so now we have the overall sizes. Let's do our finish sketch. So we're going to close our sketch. We're going to finish and cancel the command, and we'll use the fit to bring everything into play. So we're going to do two revolved extrusions. So here's the revolve tool. I'm going to click on revolve, and it doesn't matter which one you pick first. I will pick this one first. I'm going to hit enter to accept, and then I'm going to select either this line or even this line. It doesn't matter which one as long as it's in line. So I'll try with this one. Click, move my mouse, and then I'm going to click the donut, which is the revolve 360 degrees right there. Okay, let's finish once. Okay, now we're going to do the second one. So same thing, we're going to select that one. I can click the check mark or hit enter, either one, and then do the exact same thing. Either click this line or click this line, move your mouse, select the 360, finish, and then cancel the command. So now we have our two main bosses. So our two main bosses are located exactly where we want them to be. Our next step is we are going to create a non-linear connection point, which is the rib itself that goes from the first boss to the second boss. To do this, we're going to use a tool called Loft. But before we do anything else, we have to set things up, as always. So we are going to create a couple of planes. We need the shape to actually be perpendicular to the axis that we have. So In order to do that, we're going to create a couple of work planes. So our first work plane is located right here. And in fact, we can do one of two ways. We can use a parallel plane, which is right here, or we can also use an angular plane, okay, which is right here. I'm going to use a parallel plane. Okay, so the parallel plane works as follows. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to select the reference plane that I want to use. In this case, it's going to be the top plane. So I'm going to click on the top plane. And as I do that, as you can see, I can move it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this to the end of that vertical line. So I'm just going to click on it once, and it creates my plane right there. Okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the bottom here. So I'm going to create another parallel plane. Once again, it's the top that we want. We can move it, and then we're going to select the endpoint. Or actually, in this particular instance, we're just going to type in 0 because it is on the same plane. I'm going to type in 0, hit enter, and then left click anywhere in space, and now I have my second plane. I didn't necessarily need to create that. It's just to get in some good practice in creating planes. So let's hit escape. Okay, so our first step, we're going to create a sketch. So I'm going to, first of all, click on sketch. I'm going to select this plane, look straight up, and then I am going to use a nice little tool here that I've been working with quite often. It's called Project Sketch. Project Sketch allows me to select geometry so I can anchor stuff to it. So I'm going to click on Project Sketch, accept the options, and then I'm just going to select that edge. Okay, accept it, and hit escape. Now what this does is that it allows me to anchor another sketch exactly to where I want it. So that is going to be an elliptical shape. I'm going to use, if I click the down arrow on circle, here's circle, click the down arrow, I'm going to pick the second last choice, which is ellipse by center point. Click on ellipse by center point. I'm going to take my cursor. I'm going to hover and then click anywhere on that black edge that I just created. So left click, and that establishes my center. Then I'm going to go straight up. Okay, and then as soon as I get to the end of the boss, just like that, I'm just going to simply, it doesn't matter where, just click and then create my first ellipse. Now as you can see, that ellipse itself is not straight, so we need to add some additional geometry. So I'm going to add a line. I'm going to go to the end of the ellipse, which is right here, drag to the end of the ellipse, which is right here. Okay, and now in fact these two really require to be construction. So I can left click on that one, hold, control, left click on this one, and then go to my construction, which again is up here. Click, and now I have those two construction lines. Now the reason I wanted to put this is that I'm going to use my horizontal vertical constraint to force this to be absolutely straight, like that. Okay, so now that ellipse is exactly where it's supposed to be, approximately, and it is perfectly straight. We are now going to add some dimensions. We actually only need to add one dimension, and that is what the width of this ellipse is. And if we take a look at the cutout on the right hand side, it says that it's 12 millimeters. So we're not going to use the smart dimension, we are going to end up using this one, the in-between. So I'm going to click on the in-between, and I'm going to select that endpoint and that endpoint. I'm going to drag straight up, type in 12, enter, and now I have the width that I want. Now, because this is actually snapped to this edge, I don't have to worry about the vertical, so I'm just going to leave it as is. The only other dimension I need is I need to make the end or this side of the ellipse and this edge approximately, or exactly 3 millimeters. So let's do that. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. The distance between, we're going to select that end, and we're going to select that end, click, and type in 3. And now it is, or it should be, if we connect this, let's do this. That's better. Okay, so now you can tell that everything is constrained because everything is now black. So now it's everything as we require it to be. Okay, let's finish our sketch. Now we got to do the exact same thing down here. So create another sketch. We're going to create another sketch on that, and I'm just going to rotate it so I can actually see where it is, right there. Okay, this is going to do, we're going to do pretty much the exact same thing. So we're going to go, and this time we're going to use a line. We're going to go from the end to the end, just like that. Okay, let's make that into construction. That's fine. That's perfect. It's going to be the exact same process, but we're going to set it up just a tad bit different. So I'm just going to create a line that goes from this point to this point, makes it nice and straight. Okay. Let's do this. Let's connect the end to the line like that, and connect the end to the line like that. So now we have that. Okay. Once again, construction. All right. So once again, all I'm doing here is just creating a skeleton. I'm then going to use the same 2-point or the same center point ellipse. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to find the ellipse, which is pretty much the intersection between those two lines, which is right there. Left click, find the end, left click. All right. And as always, we don't have to worry about putting in or at being exact because we're going to put in some dimensions. So we're going to put an in between. So here is the endpoint of the ellipse. Here's the other endpoint of the ellipse. And this is exactly as the top. It's 12. Okay. Escape. And one more in between. We want that edge and that point. And we want that to also be 3. So now those two elliptical shapes are perfectly in line. Good. Hit escape. All right, we can now finish or close our sketch. And we're going to finish all the commands. Now, remember what I said. A lot of times when we add geometry or objects to our drawing, it tends to become cluttered. We don't necessarily need to see these two work planes at this point. So if we go to our history tree and we take the check mark off, it'll turn those off. Okay? Also, sketch 1, we'll leave it as is, but make sure that our next step, we're going to select the ellipses, not the rectangles. So our next step is we want to connect that ellipse to this ellipse to create the rib. To do this, we are going to use another tool. So we're going to use a tool that we haven't really used as often. If we go up to here, to the Add button on the extreme side, or the extreme right-hand side of the solids, click the down arrow. And we have a bunch of choices. The one we want is the third from the top, which is called Loft. I'm going to click on Loft. Okay. We don't necessarily need to do anything here because it's already set. The only thing you would need to do is make sure that you have select from a sketch as opposed to coincidental or any other option. So I'm going to select from a sketch. So it has to be sequential, so that means it doesn't matter which one you pick first, but it has to be sequential. So sequential 1, which would be that one. Sequential 2, which would be that one. And at that point in time, we're going to hit our preview, and then we're going to hit finish. close. So now we have our rib. There's our rib. So we've got probably the most important or the hardest portion already done. Okay? All right. So let's continue forward. Our next step is we are going to create the eye-shaped rib, which is located right here. Okay, so this is going to be done, same process. We're going to go sketch. So we're going to go and sketch, and from our base features, we're going to select, we're actually going to select the right view, the YZ. So it looks like we're using all of the base reference planes. It helps out that we've set it up so it's symmetrical, and it makes it easier to get everything done. So I'm going to click on that to start the sketch. Okay, now one little tip, we know that we have to set all of these up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create, or I'm going to rough out the shapes first, and then from there I'm going to put it where they belong. Okay, so our first step is we're going to go into line, and in fact you can create all of these shapes using rectangles as well as lines. I'm going to do it the following. I'm going to do the first horizontal portion on the top using just lines and arcs, and then the second horizontal I will use it at using a rectangle. So I'll show you the two methods. So if I click, start with a line, so I'm going to go as follows. I'm going to just click, drag, make sure it's straight. I don't care how long it is just yet. Left click. Okay. From there, I'm just going to take my cursor and click in my dialog box the change it from a line to an arc. Take my cursor, make sure that it's exactly at the end, and then start moving from left to right slowly, and then start coming down like that. So as I do that, it will create the arc that I want. So again, don't worry too much about where it is, just as long as you can see the red alignment lines right there. Left click, let's draw our line again. It will tell us exactly when the bottom line is lined up with the top line. Left click, and then one last click right here. Same thing, make sure that that's at the end. Go this time from right to left and up, and then left click to connect. So there's our first portion of our eye rib. Let's hit escape. Let's do the second portion. The second portion, I'm just going to go by using two rectangles. Or actually, I'm going to use one rectangle. I'm going to create a rectangle like that. It'll be like so. And then I'm going to use my tangent arc, which is right here. So with the tangent arc, it's similar. I click here, and I just go and I select there. I can do the same thing. Click here and there. So if you're not overly confident with changing between line and arc, you can always do this. By doing it this way, what I can do then is I can select these two lines just like so. And let's do that again. There we go. And then hit delete, and it gets rid of that. Now, there is one little problem. There is really no tangency now. So what we have to do is we have to create our tangencies. So we have to go tangent and tangent like that. And we also have to make these two lines vertical or horizontal. So we're going to have to use the horizontal. So there, it's already telling me. Perfect. Okay. So we've got everything we need. We only need one more, and that is a 2-point rectangle. Point 1, point 2. Okay. So let's start building the building blocks. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect that end to this end. So now it's centered, and I'll do the same thing. Connect this end to this end. Now I have that. Now, if we take a look at the drawing, the thickness all around is identical. It is going to be 4 millimeters. So, here's how we are going to do it. I am going to put in one dimension, or actually, I'll do it this way. It's a lot easier. I'm going to use the in between this line and this line. I'm going to make that 4. Okay. Now, because that is 4, I'm going to do the same thing here. In between, so click the in between here and here. That is also 4. Okay. Here I have to reconnect it because it disconnected it, just like that. And do the same thing here. And this is, again, this is the main reason why I like using the opposite side. There. Okay, so now I have that. This has to be the same thickness as this. Okay, so probably the easiest way of doing it is if I go equals, I select that, and then I select this, and it makes it equals. Because they're all interconnected, right? Okay, so what is the distance that we want? Well, we don't know what the width is for these, but we do know what the height is. It is 30, so we're going to do the in-between. So we're going to select, and select, and we're going to put in a 30. Okay, so now we know how far that is. Okay, we are going to also do one more thing. We're going to create a line from the center to the center. Left click on that new line and make it construction. Okay, the reason is that is going to line up with this construction line. So let's see if we can do it. So first off, I'm going to use my connect, and I'm going to say this point and this line, slams it right in between. Okay, actually before we do that, let's do this. Okay, let's do a tangency. So we're going to do a tangent between here and this edge, which is right here. Okay, and we're going to do a tangency also, hopefully from, okay, let's go back one step. Okay, let's try the bottom first because it's inverting. Select. Okay, that's better. Okay, tangency now from, oops, the tangency from here to here. Okay, that's much better. And then the only other thing we need to do now is basically link this to this. So let's go connect. We're going to go that point to the center line, and everything actually adjusts itself perfectly. Last thing we need to do from the center of the bottom boss to the bottom here is 92. So once again, we're going to do an in-between. We're going to do an in-between from the center to that, and that is 92. Is it? Let's see what we got here. Oh, sorry, it's not 92. I was looking at upside down. It's actually 26. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. All right, so now we have it. Okay, let's finish our sketch. And then what we want to do is we want to get this blended into here. This is going to be an extrusion. Okay, so it's a straight extrusion. Once again, select from sketch, make sure that's there. If it says coincidental plane, make sure you change it to select from sketch. I'm going to select these 3 objects, accept it, and then I'm going to say extend through to next, which is the second choice from the left. So this goes all the way through, but this is extend through next. If I click here, it will find the next surface, and we have it. There. So now we've got our little piece right there. Okay. All right. Let's hit cancel. Okay. Now comes the all-important mirroring part. First of all, let's turn off all of our sketches. Okay. And Alright, so now we're going to mirror the entire part to the opposite side. So to do that, here is the mirror command. Now, what we can do then is we can pre-select or select when we click on mirror. So let's click on mirror. Okay, we'll move the dialog box a little bit here. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in a window, just like that. Everything is selected. I'm going to hit the green check mark or enter, either one. And then all I need to do is select the mirroring plane. Well, it's pretty obvious. It's going to be this surface right here. I'm going to click. And what I get when I hit finish is I get my part. So there's the majority of my part. Okay, my next step is I'm going to create my holes. Now, there are 3 holes that are 16 millimeters, and there is 1 hole which is 22 millimeters. So we can do the larger hole first and the other 2 last. I don't really care which one we do. We are going to, however, use the hole command. So I'm going to click on the hole command, and as always, when you click on the hole command, you always have to go to the options first. We go to the options to set up our hole size. So we're going to change the standard to the ISO, which is right here. We indicated that the hole is 22 mils, so we'll just scroll here, see if it's already there. If there's 22 mils, we could have also just highlight it here and type in 22. Doesn't matter. Now, we don't want it to go all the way through. We just want it to go to the next surface, which is right there. So when I click OK, our first step is to select where we want to start the hole, which is right there. Okay, there's the hole. We're going to find the center, which is right there. Okay, hit escape. Let's put it into the isometric again. And then we're going to finish our sketch. And what should happen is we finish it, cancel, if we look around, it'll only go through that right there. That's fine. Okay, so let's create our next hole. We actually have 2 sets of holes that we need to create. One, which is here, which is 16 mils, and the other 2 are here. So, once again, we are going to click on our hole command, and we are going to go to the options. Okay, ISO. Let's go down here. This is 16 mils. Okay, and for the first set of holes, we want to go through everything. So we're going to go through all. Okay, click OK. We're going to select that surface. We're going to find the center, which is right there. Okay, we are now going to hit escape, close, and then it goes through all of it. So we're going to go finish again, and we're going to now set and click on this one. Okay, this we also want to be 16, so let's go ISO and 16. This one I don't really care if it can go through next or through all. I'll keep it through next because it's only going to go to the next surface. Let's click OK. Alright, so there's the center of the 16 hole. Hit escape. Finish the sketch. There's the hole. Okay, finish, cancel. Alright. Now, the only other prime feature that we have to add is we have to add a keyway here. Okay, so the keyway is actually going to be done this way. I'm going to click on my sketch, and I'm going to select that surface. I'm going to use a 2-point rectangle, and as always, I'm just going to put it approximately up here, just so we're able to see it. Okay, so smart dimensions, our horizontal dimension for this thing, as it shows on the drawing, it's 3.2 millimeters. And then the vertical is actually 1.7 millimeters. Okay, so now all we need to do is then basically make sure that this is in line with this. So I'm going to use my horizontal vertical. I'm going to pick the center, And then I'm going to pick this, and it'll snap into place. Okay? Next, to put it where it's supposed to be on the surface, I'm just going to use connect, and I'm just going to pick on one corner and the edge of the hole, and it brings it down to where it's supposed to be. Let's close our sketch. Let's finish and cancel. Zoom in, and then we're going to just simply do a straight, ordinary extrusion cut. So I'm going to take that, let's bring this over here, accept. Oops, I did an extrusion, not an, so here's a cut. Same thing, pick, accept, and let's just do a through all. There we go, cancel, cancel, and there is our part. Okay, let's turn off the last sketch. Our very last thing to do is add our final secondary features, and our secondary features are the rounds. So most of the rounds are 3 millimeters, but the outside edge, let's see what we got. The bottom here is going to be 1.5. The outside edge is also 1.5. It's going to be 3 up here and 3 here. So let's take a look. So we're going to go rounds. Okay, we're going to start with the bigger ones. We'll type in 3, enter. Okay, so all we need to do is select, say, that edge, and these 2 edges, just like that. Let's click accept and preview. Okay, so now we have that. We also have, let's hit finish, we also have this edge. Or actually, hit escape first. Let's do the inside corners here. So we're going to go that edge, and just to rotate so we can see it, that edge, and this edge. This is the insides, accept, preview, got it. Let's hit finish one more time, and this time we can select that surface, and it will pick up all of the other surfaces, just like that. Just rotate this slightly. And while we're at it, we might as well do the opposite side too. So here, here. If I hover, it will find it right there. Let's pick it here, and then accept and preview. And now we have that. So now we have the larger portion. So the smaller boss, it's going to be half of that. It's going to be 1.5. So we're going to change the radius to 1.5, enter, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select that, we're going to select that, we're going to select this, and we're going to select this, accept, preview, finish. Okay, so now we have that, and if need be, we can also jazz it up, even though it's not on the drawing. I'm going to give it a 1 millimeter chamfer on all of the openings. So again, just some practice. Here's the chamfer. So 1.5 millimeters is fine. I'm going to select that. Select this. Let's rotate it around. This. Okay. Let's accept it and finish it and cancel. Okay. Last but not least, as always, remember, always change the material, because right now it's a default material, which means you're working with ice. So I am just simply going to double click on material, and I'm going to use steel. So there's steel. I'm going to hit apply. There it is. And if I want to get rid of all the lines and make it look a lot more realistic, I'm just going to make it shaded, and we are done. There's your swing. Let's save it. We'll call it swing link. There's the swing link. Save. And that's how you go about doing it. Thank you for watching.